like we've got a few more people that have come in, a couple people waiting. All right, well, we are going to go ahead and get started. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Everyone, we've got Kyle Burke. Can you hear me okay, Kyle?
Yeah, I can hear you perfectly.
Okay, perfect. We've got Kyle Burke here, everyone, from Naked Wine, and we're really, really excited to have her come chat with us this evening and join our Hue Society community this evening. This is going to be a chat that's, really informal. So at any time, if you guys have any questions, you can throw it up in the chat or just let us know, and just more of a conversation and really getting to know Kyle and her journey and what's next for her. So I'm going to go ahead and read her bio. Kyle Burke is an educator of 20 years in Baltimore, Maryland. She's an artist at heart. However, teaching career exploration to high school students led her closer to her passion as a wine connoisseur and soon winemaker. In 2015, Kyle launched Yoshi Art, an art and wine-based business, leading small groups through painting experiences paired with introductory wine tastings. As business grew, so did her love for understanding and sharing the world of wine. So in 2018, Kyle began pursuing the dream of producing her own wild wine label by fermenting, blending, and bottling varietals in her home cellar. It was during this period Kyle began aggressively pursuing avenues and resources to help her growing business. In 2019, she was awarded her first scholarship, She Can, from the McBride Sisters and Women of the Vine and Spirit. Winning this scholarship afforded her the opportunity to meet and network with established industry professionals while building her confidence in this new industry. It was also this time when COVID-19 came and brought everyone in the world to a screeching halt. This, however, fueled her desire to continue researching and experimenting with her home batches. In 2020, Kyle was awarded the opportunity to study with Naked Wine's Emerging Vintner Mentorship Program. And through multiple interviews and conversations, Kyle was announced as the first awardee to this prestigious program. Kyle would have the chance to learn how to make bulk wine from the vine to the bottle for 1 year and produce her own label under nakedwines.com. During 2021, Kyle received an incredible amount of mentoring through the Roots Fund and Naked Wines while traveling multiple times coast to coast during the entire growing and harvest of her first vintage. On July 9th, 2022, Kyle Burke Chardonnay was finally released for sale on nakedwines.com. In September 2020, her second version of an oak Chardonnay was also released. In total, this vintage will produce 17,000 bottles of 2 styles of Chardonnay. This has been an amazing journey process, and she's happy to announce that she will continue working with Naked Wines next year for vintage 22. As a newly established winemaker, Kyle is excited to be a student of nature and continue growing in the vast industry. But as an educator, she understands and embraces her duty to empower our youth by creating a space for future winemakers and enthusiasts. She's an artist at heart, creating beautiful pieces of art, a teacher, showing the next generation their pathway, and a new winemaker creating art in a glass. So everyone, let's welcome Kyle Burke to our chat this evening. So the first thing that came to mind just from reading your bio, tell us a little bit about your journey as an educator and how you transitioned and connected that to your love and passion for wine.
Okay, so listening to that, first of all, it's very humbling. And first of all, thank you for inviting me to share my journey with all of you. Thank you to the Hughes Society. Thank you to Hira Habibi, one of my wine idols, and all of you. I'm serious. um, and all of you all in pursuing, your passion. That we share in common. All right, let me sip real quick. So the journey started with educating. Yeah, I've been a teacher for over 20 years. I am no longer actually with Baltimore City. I'm actually with Howard County now, but hopefully in the next month or so, I will have made the full transition into the beverage industry. I've been interviewing with a couple of different distribution companies,
Nice.
and I decided to take that full leap and go completely into the industry. So,
Nice.
yeah,
Congratulations.
thank you. But yeah, so I didn't want to be a teacher. I started out, yes, Baltimore. I'm in Randallstown in Baltimore County. So I didn't want to be a teacher, but I come from a family of educators, starting from my grandmother, my great grandmother, all the way down. We've all been educators. So I kind of fought that, and I didn't really, I've always been an artist though. Growing up as a young person, kind of doodling and sketching and doing things for friends. I didn't realize I was an artist until, I got older, and people really started paying attention because, as an artist, you don't really pay attention to it. You just do it because you like it or love it. So I got into education, and I did that simply because my now 21 and 22-year-old young human beings are, they were babies. And it was the easiest way to get into an occupation that would lend itself to a schedule that I needed. So I did that, and I liked it. And then I turned, I loved it. It took a while, like anything, you got to go through baptism by fire, especially as educator. But the last 10 years of education, I ended in Baltimore City schools as a career research and development teacher. And I'm working with 9 to 10, 12 graders. And I'm talking and preaching to them every day about, okay, you do what you love, and, you've got to figure out the things that feel good to you and you like, and what are your interests and talents and hobbies, and trying to get them to connect those dots with possibilities for career paths, and helping them develop their soft skills and, all that good stuff. And somewhere around the 7th year, maybe a little bit sooner, I started listening to my own lessons, because at some point, I got to a point where things became very mundane, same thing in and out every day. And bringing art, I didn't teach art. I did art as a club after school because the school didn't have the money to teach art. So I decided to offer it as a club. And my students came to me and they were like, Miss Burke, why don't you do it as a business? And I was like, yeah, I could, I could do that. But all those kind of doubts and hesitations come in. But finally I decided, what, I could. And all the while I was teaching, I had been drinking and loving wine. So, 20 plus years as a wine connoisseur and lover, starting at, in the very early part of my career, drinking Sweetwater and just loving it, and then going all the way, to where I am today. It turned into something where it made sense. And I was talking to my husband actually, and he said to me something that stuck with me. If you can find 1 to 2 things that you love and you can like stick with it and specialize in it, and you become that person that everyone goes to because you're so good at that, that's when you know you've reached something that you want to continue doing. And it made sense to me because I was like, okay, if I don't care what it is, if you're a janitor, if you're a photographer, a chef, whatever, a president, that thing that people look at you and they're like, I can go to that person. I know they're really good at this. So I decided that, definitely art. So I started teaching, art classes. And then with wine kind of snuck up in there because I wasn't really a wine maker in thought and theory. That didn't happen. Initially, I just loved wine, and a friend of mine knew that. And I would always drink wine with my girlfriends. And they basically were coming to me all the time and asking me, well, what should I bring to this? And what should I pair with that? So that's how that happened. And finally, it turned into this thing where people were coming to me and I became this point person and I didn't even realize it. And once that happened, I realized I think I'm onto something. I think there's a niche and I think I need to go ahead and explore this. And that was the birth of my artist name is Yoshi's Art. And that's my art name. It's Japanese, which means good or fine. So it turned into Yoshi's Art and Wine because I started offering paint classes and introductory wine tasting.
Nice.
So that's how that started.
So how would you relate your artistic confidence and translating that into now that you started to, you had the support of your husband, the support of your teachers. How were you able to kind of translate that artistic confidence into this new area?
Well, that had to be developed. With even with art, there's a level of insecurity that I deal with because when I'm doing pieces for myself, it comes from the heart and it's something that I want to share and to complete and do for myself. But when I'm working with clients and other people, it's becomes a challenge to meet, to meet what I do with my clients' expectations or desires for a piece. So each commission is different. Each commission has a different feel to it. So there is a level of insecurity that has to be overcome. And I have to let go of that. It comes initially and then I start learning and start kind of feeling through. I do a lot of meditating and just kind of going into that zone. So with winemaking, definitely there's still a lot of security because it was so new to me and it was something that I had to completely learn from scratch. And that happened when I was doing it at home in my house, doing small batches. Number one, it's safety. I don't want to contaminate anything and cause adverse reactions. And number two, it's a science, and it's learning something that I had never done before. So learning how to take small batches of concentrated grape juice and learn what yeast, how they react with it, and how to get through a stuck fermentation, and when to let go and just start all over again, or when to decide to keep moving forward. All of that is trial and error. And it is like art because it is an art of figuring out when to go and when to stop and when to regroup and erase and then come back. So it is a process. It's very, very similar because you're taking something from nothing and creating beauty out of it. So,
Right, right. So we have a lot of community members who are like yourself, figuring out ways to transition from one career path to another, and that other often being a primary career in wine in some way, shape, or form. So can you just walk us through, that pathway that you took from, applying for your scholarships, some of the pivotal moments along the way that have brought you to the point where you are now?
That's a really good question, because it takes me back a couple of years. It's been about 5 years now, but my husband we have these conversations, and it's probably about 4 years. We had this conversation about, how are you going to recoup all the wine you've basically consumed in the state of Maryland? So how are you going to get this money back? And he recognized a lot of things in me, and people around you in your true circle will see things in you that you may not necessarily see. You're just doing what you do, and someone will come to you and say, you really have this talent. Let's try this. So his advice was, why don't you try to figure out how to get someone to sponsor you, and figure out how you can do what you love and not have to pay for it. Because obviously, I do not have a vineyard in my backyard, and I do not have, a whole lot of land and acreage and what have you. But I said, okay, all right, I'll figure this out. So as a teacher, career research, I began researching, and I found out that there were different opportunities that were available for people of color to look at, and women to look at scholarships. And I was like, okay, so I could at least get some type of certifications. I can start that at least. So that's where the McBride sisters came in, and I found them through Women of the Spirit, Women of the Vine and Spirit. So I did find them, and that gave me confidence, because when you're coming into something for the first time, it's overwhelming, and it's like, can I really do this? And I'm still a teacher, and I'm knowing that I want to really explore this. And once I got that scholarship, that gave me a boost of confidence. And then from there, I just said, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to do any and everything I can, any opportunities I can find to, learn and meet and really just get to know people who are already doing it. Try to find a mentor, and I would write these things down. I would do a lot of visualizing, and I would write it down and journal. And I know my full moon and new moon cycles, and I'm, writing down my intentions and burning it in the backyard and all of that. So I'm doing all of this and things, as a process, and you're showing consistency, and you're just continuing with it. Opportunities continue to happen. And so that's what happened. And then I remember when Tahira came to Baltimore a couple of years, this was in March of 19, I think, 19 or 20. It was right before the pandemic. And she did a panel in Baltimore, and I was there, and I was like, okay, all right, I get to see the people who are doing it and who are successful. And I felt completely charged and energized. And that's when everything just shut down. Like everybody else is like, what? So that became, the quiet time, sit still, figure it out, research, read, and drink. And, so a lot of that happened in that time period. And that's how I found the Roots Fund. I found it by researching. I had been stalking Tahira and realized that she was on the board for the Roots Fund. And I saw the scholarship, And I was like, okay, I can apply for this. So I saw the scholarship for more certification for WSET, and I was like, okay, and that's how that came to be. And then from there, with the application process, I shared with them my process of making home batches, and they were like, okay, we think that we can help you learn on a commercial level and not bootleg your wine at home, which I like it. I did. I'll admit it. But and I was like, you know what? If I really wanted, I could have had a speakeasy downstairs, but I'm not going to do all that. So, but so that's how that came, and then from the Roots Fund, that's how I was introduced to Naked Wines. So yeah.
Yeah, I love the fact that you mentioned, seeing Tahira on the panel gave you a boost of confidence, because that's exactly what we talk about when we say representation matters. Sometimes just the imagery of seeing someone that looks like you or looks similar to you doing something that you aspire to be gives you that extra confidence that I can do that as well. So I love that is something that really spoke to you, because that's a real thing.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I want to make sure that, for everybody on the line, we really get a chance to kind of dive into the whole process of how you began this program, this apprenticeship program, and the end result being your own wine brand. So I want to fast forward a little bit and just kind of talk a little bit about, going out to the vineyard, what that process was like, and take us kind of step by step through how you went through this program and ended up with your own brand.
Okay. So before I even got that, I was, there were a couple of other participants in the Roots Fund who were also winemakers. And so it was a selection process, and all of us, are doing phenomenal work with our own brands. I was selected, and we were in, I'm taking this off, now I'm hot. We were in Pennsylvania, and Akimi called me, and we had to pull off the side of the highway, and she told me, okay, so you've been selected. It was a couple of interviews that I had to go through with the Roots Fund and with Naked, and they jointly decided together, which I'm forever grateful for, and completely still in awe. So once that was happened, everything just took off from there, literally. Contracts were then established. I had to establish my own LLC, and make sure that everything was right on my part. At that point, I had already been working with 2 mentors with the Roots Fund, one business mentor and one winemaking mentor. And these are heavy hitter mentors. They're not coming in with somebody who's like, just kind of iffy, whatever. These are like top industry people who are completely beyond. So they were working with me. We'd be on monthly calls every other week, talking and strategizing and talking about winemaking and the business of winemaking, because they're 2 different avenues completely, and we all know this. So the first trip happened in May of 2020. Wait, was it 2020? Yeah, 2020. So I met my third mentor, Daniel. He's with Naked Wines. He's another winemaker. So we met a couple of times on the phone, and then finally I flew out and we met in person, and it was a whole week of just meeting all these different industry professionals and just kind of going back and forth, going to different vineyards, different places where he already had wine growing. Daniel is like this Renaissance man. He's like, this older Jewish guy that just, He was in Woodstock and just, he's this flower child. He and his wife, Gwyneth, they've become family to me because they took me in. And every time I go out to California, I don't even have a place to stay, and I stay with them now. So with that scholarship, I had 1 year. They covered the costs of me flying back and forth. They covered the cost of me staying in a hotel. So everything was paid for. With Naked, they paid. That's the good thing about Naked. Naked recognizes that you don't have the money to pay to be a winemaker, because it's very, very expensive, as we all know. And they put the upfront costs. So you have taken that piece out, and now you can focus on the craft itself. So that's the great part about that. So I'm flying back and forth. I think I flew out a total of 5 times that year, going back and forth between the first visit, picking out the barrels, going through tastings after tasting to see a taste profile that I wanted to create. And at that time, they asked me, what do you want to make? I was like, a Chardonnay, because I was drinking a lot of Chardonnay. And I got bold with it. And I said, I'm working with 44 tons of grapes, and that's completely, that's huge in the winemaking world, but they are bulk. They're bulk winemakers because they have about 300,000 wine members in the United States. So, they do everything on bulk. So I got bold and I asked them to split the block into 2, and they went with it. I was like, can we please take this block of grapes and split it into 2 ferments? I wanted 2 different styles of fermentation because, with Chardonnay, you have different styles like any varietal, but I wanted that. So they went with it. And we went back and forth. Everything had to be approved. The numbers had to add up and everything had to make sense. I went back and stayed for harvest. I did a couple of weeks for harvest, came back to Maryland, and a week later we had to go back for harvest. We did 4 night picks. We had to split it into 4 different picks simply because it was too hot during the day and they didn't have enough people there to help out. So we had to do that. It got crazy at some point, and then I got a little ill. it was crazy, but we got through it. And we came back and did bottling in the spring of 21 or 22. We're in 23 right now, so I need to up everything by 1 year. Okay. So yes, 22, we did bottling, and then finally the releases came in July, and I think it was August. Yeah, I think.
Okay. Was there anything about the winemaking process that was different than what you expected, or even more difficult than what you had anticipated?
Yeah, the work. I didn't realize how hard it was. It's hard. And I'm sure if you've ever worked harvest, any of you all have ever worked any harvest, it's straight labor. I mean, it's straight hard work. And I didn't realize how physically intense it was. And really, you really got to work out just to get ready for it, to climb up and down those blocks and constantly, at some point I was like, I'm in the way of the people who do it professionally. You're like pulling and your hands. I was out there with my bare hands pulling without gloves. And, it took forever for my palms to get back to its regular color, but it's hard labor, hard work. And if you're not physically ready for it, you better get ready for it, because it threw me off. I ended up, like I said, I got ill and things just like I had to slow down a little bit, but I got through it. I mean, literally, I got through it. I give hats off to those who do full harvest, because I didn't even do a full harvest. People are there doing full harvest for months, every day, coming in and out of the house. We stayed in Yountville, and I was at the Roots Fund House with other scholars, and they were doing that from like August, September, all the way through the early part of November. I did probably a cool, probably 3 weeks of it, broken up, so that was the hardest thing. And now that I'm no longer on that program, I'm doing it on my own. It is costly to a certain extent, because I'm flying back and forth, and then learning how to secure grapes to actually develop relationships. I did have a grower, and I thought that we were going to continue, and he ended up working with someone else because, other logistics I won't go into. But now I did get another grower for the vintage 22 that will be produced this year. But, I'm happy with it. But now I'm trying to secure more Chardonnay. So I'm thinking about looking here in Virginia. Well, in Virginia, because Virginia actually has excellent Chardonnay, and they have really nice vineyards. So I'm looking for bulk Chardonnay here. So yes.
So how would you describe artistically your approach to winemaking, and then tell us, for anyone who hasn't tried your Chardonnay, what are some of the unique characteristics of it?
Okay, so all right. Like I said, making wine is an art. And learning that, we did 2 different ferments. Okay, I wanted one style to be more of your traditional Chardonnay, California style. I didn't want it to be super buttery. I wanted it to be like just a calm butter. So I did the black label, the oak label. We did for this, we did 30%, no, 20% new oak, comprised of French, Hungarian, and American oak. And then I wanted to do a batonnage. We did once a month, stirring the leaves and making sure that, I wanted to keep the flavors infused. I wanted that to really reflect the California style. This, I wanted to be more of a French style. So we did a tank ferment, and I can't say that this is unoaked because it did sit on neutral oak for 10 months. I didn't want any new oak. I wanted it to be very soft, very almost like a hint to nothing with the oak. Okay. I wanted it to have that fresh Chardonnay, because I love Chardonnay, and I think people look at Chardonnay and say, either you love it or you hate it, but I love Chardonnay. And I think that there's so many ways to do it. But with this one, we didn't have any additions. When it came out of ferment and when it came out of resting, there were no additions to it. It was just like perfect the way it came out. And this is the one that I love. Immediately, I sat with my family here in Columbia, and we did taste out of the tanks, and they were like, "Oh yeah, this is the one right here." And I'm like, "I know, I already know," So I knew that this one was special. Both of them are special, but this one is my favorite, and this one right now currently is still out of stock. But they still had it, but they're having not problems, but getting the wine to each of the distribution centers. So, but this one you can buy now. This one's available. But so this one definitely has more of a creamy, buttery, vanilla. The notes are not too buttery, but just enough. You know what I'm saying? And this one has more of the clean, crisp, lemony, zestiness, kind of a little bit of pear and apple to it. And I'm reading my description on the back, and it's totally different from what I originally said. But that's the thing with wine, it just changes, it just does its own thing. So both of them are pieces of art that I fell in love with, and I'm doing again, thank God, for this vintage coming up. So,
I
yeah.
guess just that designing the label, and what was the thought process behind that?
Oh, okay. So my label, there is a spiritual meaning behind it. And I won't go too deep into it, but through my own personal meditations and things, I'm a daughter of Oshun. I don't know if you all are familiar with that, but it's a spiritual entity that reflects the feminine characteristic of just beauty, love, courage. The peacock, the feather, represents this change, transformation, and there is the beauty, compassion, love, respect, and courage. That's what the peacock represents. All of these things are a part of this process. Me going through changing careers and having respect for this industry and having a love for wine and passion for wine, and just having the courage to, celebrate it and actually embrace it now as my career, and hopefully be there for someone who wants to do this next. So this year I said, last year was a tough year. It was really, really hard personally, and emotionally, everything. We all see our posts and see the things that we project, but personally, there were a lot of challenges. And, and then coming into this year, this weekend, my grandmother, we're putting her to rest tomorrow, this weekend. So just everyone, we all deal with these adversities and we all have these challenges, but we all have to figure out a way to move forward and move through them, and all of us have our own way of doing that. So I'm thankful that I have the love of my family, the love of God, and the love of my ancestors to carry me through this. So that this is really, the feather is a symbol that represents, all of the things that I've experienced and have forged my way through. So, yeah.
Well,
Thank you.
that's wonderful. Oh, no problem. That's so sorry for you. But
she lived a long life. She is good now. She's working on the other side. So
I love, of the feather and all of that. To tell, when we met or I could just tell very intentionally way.
yes.
So I was that there was no meaning. What that you mentioned Virginia, but what's next?
Okay, so the next thing now, I would love to have, continue to have more vintages. We will be in the spring, we're working on bottling vintage 22. We had to cut the volume back. Can you all hear me? I just want to make sure. Okay, if my Wi-Fi isn't breaking up. So I just, that's the next thing, working on the next vintage. And this one, is me on my own. So I'm excited about that. So we'll see, what happens with this wine. And I want to continue to make really good Chardonnay. I want to be a specialist in just one varietal right now. I don't want to jump all over the place, which people can, but for me, it's easier for me to stick to one thing and really learn it. And so hopefully if I'm able to secure grapes, which I will be, I'm going to go ahead and claim that, in Virginia, I'll be able to build a relationship with a grower here and really look at the style of Chardonnay that Virginia can produce. So if anybody knows of a grower in Virginia, slip in my way, because I've been kind of like having a time with that. Like I said, I'm working with I'm waiting to hear about a position. So we'll see what happens. Thank you, Alicia. So I'll see what happens with working in distribution. So that's totally different for me, going in sales. I'd love to see my wine in different establishments locally. So I'm trying to get my wine in different bars and different hotels. And then, I think at this point, I'm ready to help other people and in a way that I can, because I've been I've been gifted this path. And if there's anything I can do to help somebody else, that's what I want to do, and I really wanted to, because this year I was like, you know what? And, you sit there and you just have these moments of thought. And I'm like, I need to help other people, because somebody was helping me, and I want to do that. And I want to make sure that other people get the same, if not more opportunities, because that's what it is. You got to pass the baton, and you got to keep it moving.
That actually leads me to the next question. That's a perfect segue, because I was going to ask you, now that you've spent a couple years doing this, what are some of one or two key pieces of advice that you would pass on to someone who might be listening and thinking about, wanting to start their own wine brand?
Just consistently keep doing it. I mean, when I say keep doing it, keep researching, keep applying, keep praying, keep talking to people, keep getting literature, keep, doing anything you can, because when you exhaust everything you've done, that's when the magic happens. And I'm saying that for truth. I just kept doing it, and I didn't even realize it. And I'm not saying, oh, I'm going to do this. You just keep doing it, and you don't even realize, because you're having fun doing it, and you're learning the whole time. And it's making you feel good. It's keeping you occupied, and you're learning about a craft, and you're becoming a specialist, whether you even realize it or not. I can go to people, and I know that, they're good at that, because that's what they do naturally. So I would suggest that you just keep talking and keep working with people, and keep asking for help, because I couldn't do it. I had to start from zero. So for anyone, you start at nothing, and then you just keep going, and then you're at someplace, and then you're at someplace else, and then you're at someplace else, and it can get a little intimidating going into some of these places, and you're hearing other winemakers spit out different scientific figures and numbers and things like that. But then this is what I did, was I would go home literally, and I would just research. Oh, you're talking about pH level. Oh, you're talking about, total acidity, and I'm like, they didn't know things too. And then all of a sudden they became experts. So I have to keep reminding myself that, I may not have known yesterday, but today I know something, and tomorrow I'm going to learn something else, so, you just have to keep doing that, and then work with people who are willing to work with you, and I've been blessed that I've been working with people that have not expressed any strange biases and created weird and awkward moments, and if that happens in the future, I'll learn how to deal with that too, but you'll be fine. Just keep going every day. And, even at this time right now, there are days when I'm like, oh, Lord, like, I'm 51. I'll be 51 in March. You're like, all right, Kyle, just get your shit together. Come on, pick it up, keep going, So I want to hey, Nicole. I see Nicole in here. I'm being informal now. Alicia, I remember.
Yeah, does anybody have any questions or anything they want to ask Kyle? What about your students? After you had your first, did any of your students that originally said to you to go for it, have you heard any responses from do they know what you've done?
Yeah, I had to block a few on Facebook because I don't like high schoolers. I was like, I'm too weird about high schoolers. But yeah, a few of them, they've reached out and they've tried to friend me and stuff. I'm like, he's like 22, Drayon. I love him to death. He was one of my students from the very beginning. I did accept him because he's over 22. I was like, no, I'm not. But a lot of my friends who are teachers have probably shared with them some of the things that I've done. So, I and they knew that I was leaving. So they were like, all right, good luck. But teenagers, they're like.
Yeah, but I mean, that again, just that visualization of being able to see someone pursue, a goal, start a new career, all of that, is inspirational no matter what age you are. So kudos to you for just having that courage, because I know it's difficult. And like you said, we get imposter syndrome, and sometimes we think, it's too late, or, this is a young person's thing, or, just we doubt ourselves, but it's never too late. It's never too late to pursue,
Let me tell you the irony of this. So I think it was 2015, my brother-in-law gifted me, because he knew I was a heavy wine drinker. He gifted me a membership to Naked Wines. This was back in 2015. And I did a post, and I did this whole thing on YouTube. It was called Cellar to the Studio. And my first thing was pairing wine with artists. And so my first artist was Jean-Michel Basquiat. So I paired Basquiat with F. Stephen Miller. He did a Zen, and it was through Naked Wines. And I did this whole thing. We have a very small mini cellar downstairs. And I was looking at that video and I was like, oh my gosh, you were doing this a long time ago. And just me being, kind of goofy a little bit, and just fun and enjoying, wine and art. I was just trying to bring it together. You know what I'm saying? So, but I was like, damn, Ollie gave me this wine thing, and here I ended up being a winemaker. That's the universe. That's how it works.
Right.
You never know how these things come around. So.
Exactly.
Well, I have a question, if it's okay.
Yeah.
I just want to know, how do we connect with you outside of this forum tonight?
Okay, so I'll put my, let me do that right now. I'll put the keyboard right here. I will put it in the chat. I have Yoshi's Art is my I haven't really done anything outside of that, but Yoshi's Art is my Instagram, and Facebook. So hold on, let me put this in here. Chat. All right. Whoops. You can definitely, and I'll put my phone number in here too. Yoshi's Art. And I'll put my phone number. All right. And definitely, if you want to call me, I am here for it. You know, and I'm looking at the chat now. I haven't looked at it. Okay. Yes. I've been in Baltimore for we moved here in 01. We've been here for a minute. So, but, yeah, I definitely need a grower in Virginia. So, yes, mommy duties are always going to be there, even when they grow up, and they intensify when they grow up. You think they're older and they move? No, they get it. So, yeah.
Well, this has been great. It's such great information, and you know, it's amazing what you've been doing. And we wanted to not only give you a platform to just tell your story, but just let you know that you have people in the community that, you know, are proud of you and everything that you're accomplishing. So, you know, congratulations on everything that you've done. It's very, very so amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I hope that I will be the facilitator or mentor for the next. So,
and we've got on our follow-up email that we're going to send out to everybody, we've got a discount code if you guys want to try to order any of Kyle's wines. We'll send that out to everyone.
Okay. Oh, you still have that I sent?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Yeah, so we'll make sure everyone gets that.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And I appreciate it. And I've enjoyed everything. So I appreciate it. I can't wait to get back out to California. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Kyle. If there's no last questions, we'll let you go. Thanks again for just spending this hour with us this evening.
Okay. One more thing. Can we all toast to?
Yeah.
We called her Gaga. So toast to Dorothy, but toast to Gaga.
Yes. Toast to Gaga.
Thank you so much. She was the first person that introduced wine to me because I saw her as a grandmother drinking wine. She used to always have a glass of white wine. So toast to my grandmother. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. All right. Don't forget, guys, we do have our sipping social next Friday at 8:30. It's just going to be a very casual happy hour for everybody to catch up and just fellowship together. So hope to see you guys then, okay? Good night, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Kyle.
Thank you so much.
You are welcome. Thank you. All right.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right. Thank you.